Hey everyone, welcome again. Thanks so much for joining another episode of Modern App Development on Salesforce. Today we're going to talk about Apex testing. My name is Mohit. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce. I have joined by Julian. Julian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, Mohit. Thank you very much. Hello, you all, and welcome to this new episode. My name is Julian Duque. I'm a lead developer advocate here at Salesforce, working mainly with the Heroku team. I am your JavaScript person, and today I'm joining Mohit to learn a lot about Apex testing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julian, for joining. And today, we're going to explore Apex testing. Now, before that, Julian, I want to remind that we are a publicly traded company. So, this is a forward-looking statement. So please do not make, any purchasing decision based on anything forward-looking that we make in this presentation. With that, let's talk a bit about modern app development on Salesforce. So we started the series last November in 2020, and we covered the full spectrum of application development from design to build, and now we are in this testing stage. So we have a couple more sessions before we wind this whole series on modern app development, and all of our sessions recordings are there on our YouTube channel and also on the Trailhead Live, so do catch them if you have missed them. So with that, Julian, why don't we get started?
Sure. So, Mohit, we only have like two more sessions, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have only two more sessions, one on packaging and deployments, another one on CI/CD and how to build CI/CD pipelines for Salesforce applications. And I know that, Julian, you're working on something exciting as well. So I'll keep that to myself, and hopefully, we
Yeah.
can disclose it when we get into our next sessions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the people in chat right now, now that we are coming to an end, like pretty soon,
Yeah.
almost next week, if they like this series, if they like these episodes, if you want to see more of us working together, what kind of topics did we miss, and do you want to see us talking live? To tease you a little bit, I'm working on a Node.js series of episodes. So we are going to be focusing a lot on Node.js and JavaScript. Starting January 21st is going to be the first session, an introduction to Node.js for Salesforce developers. And then I'm going to guiding you with other Salesforce developers through building Node.js applications on the Salesforce platform. So please in chat, let us know what topics do you want to see? Do you want us to cover? And let's keep this going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, please do your, please send us your feedback and let us know, what topics you would like us to cover. Okay, so Julian, so before we actually deep dive into code and start writing some code today, why don't we recap a bit around unit testing? I know we covered some of the concepts in the last session, but how about just repeating it, for the audience who would have joined us new and who are very new to unit testing? So essentially, a unit is a module of a code, that can be independently tested, meaning, you isolate all the dependency and you focus on just that specific module and you test it. Now, unit testing ensures that, your code is performing the task it is intended to. So that's why you do. And really, the primary benefits of unit testing is you can identify your regression bugs easily if you automate your unit test, and also it reduces the cost of fixing bugs because the moment your code actually goes into production and then you start having lots of bugs, you want to make sure that you have a proper unit test in place for everything, so that you when you fix your bug, you're not sort of breaking anything else in your application. So all these automated tests are going to ensure that the fix that you made is solid. It's not far more worst. So Julian, from my experience, I can tell that in the past, to fix a bug, I have fixed it in a very hurried manner, and that had caused more bugs. So
Oh yeah.
so having a unit test really helps, because then I can catch that, okay, my fix is breaking other parts of the application. So with that, it definitely reduces your cost of fixing bugs.
Yeah, and one good practice that people say, it's when you find a bug,
Hmm.
write a test for it, fix it in the case of avoiding that type of, of regression, not introducing the same bug again.
Got it.
So it is a good way to increase the test suite of an application. It's to
Yeah.
write the test around bugs that have been found.
Awesome. Yeah. And Julian, the other thing that I like about the unit testing is they are self documented. Like, for example, if you have a proper unit test case, especially for open source applications, right, you can go to the test method and kind of figure out what your code or your method is doing. So it is sort of self documenting for yourself. If you do not have a lot of documentation, or if you do not have time to put together docs for your application, unit tests, if you write proper unit tests, that pretty much covers everything. Also, it makes your code design and refactoring a little bit easier, if you have proper unit tests. So, Julian, last time, you remember, for testing with Jest, we followed this pattern where we said, okay, a lot of the test frameworks follow this pattern, and it makes it really easy to write your tests, organize your test. So it's called AA pattern, where you arrange, act, and assert. So in the arrange, you set up objects, you bring your system to the desired state, you configure all the dependencies that are required, and then you act upon it. Meaning, you call the method with the dependency, you capture the output, and in the assert, you start making the claims about your outcome. So you basically read the return values, read whether your code is working as expected, and you figure out that, okay, it is the desired state that you want your application to be after that specific assertions. So we're going to follow the same methodology, Julian, that we followed. And this is a general, very sort of a general pattern in unit testing across different languages, frameworks, and generally very prevalent in our industry today. So with that, Julian, I want to take you through some of the concepts of Apex testing before I kind of start, hands-on and working towards it. So one of the things, Julian, about that is different than that JavaScript testing that we did in the last session with Jest is, these Apex tests actually run on Salesforce servers rather than, on your local or client. And I recommend everyone to write sufficient tests for your application, because these tests, we not only not only you are running these tests actually in your releases, but also note that Salesforce has 3 major releases in a year. Okay. And before we release our new version of the product, we run all your tests. So if we are breaking your test for some reason, then we know that it could be also some regression in our code, or it means the code that we control. So that's why we recommend that you write your tests. This is also called as hammer. So we run all your tests before the major release and find out if we have unintentionally broken anything. So that's why I recommend that you please write Apex test. And in fact, we have this strong 75% coverage requirement to move your code to production. So when I say production, Julian, not just scratch arcs. Like in scratch arcs, you can basically have your code without tests, also in sandboxes. But when you package it up or move to production, you have to ensure that 75% coverage is met for that specific Apex class. Otherwise, you will see red flags, and you won't be able to move to the production. And
Is
that's, yeah.
is the 75% also valid for publishing packages to I forgot the name
App
of the
Exchange.
Apex
App
App
Exchange.
Exchange? Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah, 75% is covered. It's mandatory for both unlock packages, for your managed packages. So App Exchange applications are essentially managed packages, Julian. So those also need that 75% coverage. Otherwise, you'll not be able to generate a package. And same principle. We want to encourage developers to write positive tests, negative tests. And these two are very, very specific to Salesforce. I don't think we do this in JavaScript a lot, right? So profile or permission based testing, and I'll show you some examples of what is profile or permission based testing. So essentially, in Salesforce, right, users are sort of grouped into profiles and they have different permissions. So when you run your test, make sure to run under the same permissions that your actual users will be using the application for, so that if there are any permission issues or anything that that they need is caught up early in the process. So this is very, very specific, Julian, and I'll talk you through that. Also, Julian, there is this bulk testing, and this is also very, very specific to Salesforce, and it is applicable to Apex triggers. Now, the whole idea behind bulk testing is, that Apex triggers actually, take 200 records at a time and execute. And a lot of time, our developers write code such a way that it's not bulkified, meaning, it will work with one record, but the moment you provide hundreds of records to the that particular trigger, and that is through, because somebody can data load into Salesforce or use an API to push hundreds of records into Salesforce. So at that time, if this trigger runs, right, and if you have not bulkified your trigger, you will see that the trigger actually fails and hits all the limits of the platform. So that's why we recommend that you bulk test it with at least 200 records, so that you're confident that your trigger will not break when somebody is doing data load or pushes data through an API. And also one more thing, and this is what we will start with today, is creating data factories. So data factory is basically a class, Julian, that its core responsibility is to create test data. So you generate the test data and you do it all in one class, so that you can use that class and call it from other classes. So its core responsibility is just to generate test data, so that you're not repeating the same code again and again, and also you don't have to write a lot and maintain a lot of code. It basically promotes reuse of test data creation. Any questions, Julian, so far?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that similar to the data factory in JavaScript world and other programming languages, you're going to find the term fixtures.
Okay.
That's also used to keep that type of mock data or basic data that can be reused on different test suites.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to know. I need to explore more about fixtures. What was that? Fixtures? Okay.
Fixtures, yeah.
Fixtures. Okay, perfect. I know that in Java there are other things, like for example, I know that Mockito or Mockito is one of the frameworks in Java where you can do something like this. You can generate mock data, etc. And I know that there are also external tools which give you like real real test data, like Mockaru, where you can go and generate some test data. Those type of things are really good for just testing.
What I use
Yeah.
What I use in JavaScript that can also be used with Lightning Web Components application, it's a library called Faker.js.
Faker. Okay.
Faker.js allows you to pretty much create a lot of different fake data. For example, if you need a phone number, a city, a full name, a string of certain characters, it can help you create that kind of data like in a dynamic way.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Julian, what are we going to do today? So we are today going to write unit tests for PDF create service Apex class. And, I'm going to try following all the best practices, like the one that I showed in the slide, that is making sure I have a data factory to generate all the test data, making sure I test with the profile, right? Or the permission set. So let's get started with coding. So let's bring up our project. Let's see. Okay, so we have our project here, and today we are not going to work with LWC folder. We'll just work with Apex folder. So let's recap a bit of what this PDF service does. So it's basically a very simple Apex class that's responsible for invoking the Heroku service, where it actually sends all the data that is required for the PDF generation. So it calls the Heroku service, and the Heroku service basically returns a response so we don't do much here. We just see if the status code is like 200, then we return true. Otherwise we return false, and we can invoke this service from a Lightning component, right? I believe we also sort of use this from the flows. Was this? Or maybe not. Oh, we use it from the Lightning component. So basically Lightning component invokes this PDF service, right? So we're going to write test for this, and there's already tests in the repo actually, Julian, but I'm going to ignore that for the time being and start from the fresh, so that instead of just explaining the code, we will hands-on actually show them how to create data factory and all. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing, Julian, is you need these tools. You need to have Salesforce extension pack installed. The extension pack comes with these extensions like extension for Apex, extension for interactive debugging, replay debugging, Aura components, you name it. There's one for Salesforce CLI integration. So all of them is actually bundled in this extension, like Salesforce extension pack, that has all these. I think it has a bunch of 8 extension packs together. So you basically go to your marketplace and search for Salesforce extension pack, and you install this in your Visual Studio Code. And you also need Salesforce CLI. So you need Salesforce CLI because these extension commands under the hood use the Salesforce CLI command line framework, right? So they use that and they invoke the same commands that are there in the CLI. So that's the tooling setup I have. And then I have cloned the project, right? I've cloned the eCars project. It's there on our, I think it's there on our sample gallery apps, right? So you go to Trailhead apps. Hopefully it doesn't ask me for login. So you go here and then you basically look for that eCars application and just clone that application. So that's all I've done. I've cloned it, and then we have instructions here for you to automatically deploy this application. It uses both Salesforce and Heroku, and it uses multiple Heroku services. So we have automated the deployments. There's a script that you can run and it will automatically take care of a lot of things for you. And we have also instructions for manual deployment, and we also covered them in our previous session. So if you have missed them, please tune into previous sessions on our YouTube channel and on the Trailhead Live, and you definitely find the information of how to sort of install. But yeah, so git, and then we just git clone the application. So Julian, I'll start writing the data factory first, because I want to use the data factory to create all the things, like for example create user records, create the the lead record that I need, because remember that we send the information. Some things are screen generated information, right, like the exterior color and the interior colors of the car in that application, but we also send the lead ID to the external world. So we need the leads in our Salesforce system, or we need to mock that object, right? So so first we'll go with, say, create class, and I'm gonna say data factory. So let's select data factory, and now if you want, you can put it in its own folder. You can create a separate folder for tests and put all your tests there, or if you want, you can put it in the classes folder itself. It's up to you where you want to put. Generally, I recommend that you put it in a different folder. For now, I'm just gonna go here. So here, Julian, we need to make sure we annotate the class at isTest. So what at isTest means is this class is used for only testing purposes, right? And Julian, so we don't need with sharing keyword. With sharing is to respect all the sharing rules of the platform, and that's for main logic. Because we are writing tests, we don't worry about whether we want to put with sharing clause there or not. So it's a class. So, and also you can make it okay, this one will be public. So if you make the class as, so there are 3 things you can do, like global, public, and private. Public is you can use this class in other classes. Private means you cannot use this class. And global means if you package it up, if there is another package or another code in the client's environment, they can use, right? So global means it's like globally available across all the orgs where this app is installed. So it's just a, but for this one we'll keep it public because we will use data factory in other classes, right? But the actual test where we write will make it as private. So okay, so then it will be some static method. So we say public static, and let's say we are writing a method for creation of the lead. So I'm going to say create lead, right? And then okay, so leads in Salesforce, Julian, lead object in Salesforce, it requires two things, like the last name of the lead and the company. So if you don't provide those information, you will see that your code will not, you cannot insert a lead without those information. It's like a required. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there an easy way to check which required values are for a specific object?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually. That's a really good question. Let's actually log into the org and show you where we can find that. I think we can basically find that information in multiple places. One place is definitely in your org. The other place is obviously Salesforce documentation. And
Okay.
sometimes it's like I manually create them in the org and see, hey, if I'm creating a lead, what is but yeah, if you go to object manager, let's go to lead and see if that information is there or not. So we go to fields
I'm,
and
I'm,
relationship.
I'm asking because if I'm like a developer that I'm creating a test or a data factory for not only a Salesforce object but a custom object, where can
Yeah.
I see which are the required fields to do it?
Yeah, that makes total sense, right? And yeah. So usually, what I do, Julian, is sometimes I just go to lead records, and try creating them and see, okay. And this will differ from org to org because you can also make them as required. You can make them as required by configuration, right? So in my org, by default, Salesforce, like you see this red asterisk here. I don't know if you're able to see them
Yeah,
clearly.
yes, I
Yeah,
can see it.
yeah. So those like last name, right? Company. You see here. If I don't provide a company, it's gonna ask me to complete. Similarly, status. But the good thing about status is it will pick up the default status.
Also
So
default.
yeah, so you don't have to worry. But you can, as an administrator, configure that I need first name also required, I need lead source required, I need addresses
Yes.
required, right? So it will differ from org to org. And glad you asked the question. You usually go to the environment and see what is required by just trying to create real data, right? And you will come to know about it. So that's how usually I figure it out. Documentation also mentions what by default is, if they go to the docs, like where the lead object is sort of described. So we have a documentation, Julian, where all the objects are sort of described. Like for example, if you go to lead object in Salesforce, it will say all about it, like this one, right? Object references. So this has so you will see that this has these properties here. If I go to, let's see, if I go to like company, let's see if they have a company here. Company, right? Um, See here, description required.
Okay.
So you know that this is required from the documentation as well. So you can go to multiple places and figure it out for sure. Okay, so Julian, getting back to other work here.
Can I say the last thing?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
another one that might be
yeah.
like an easy way to take a look at that is going to the schema builder.
Schema
So you
builder.
can go to the
Yes,
schema builder, and on the schema builder you have like a visual queue,
Visual Cube.
like with a
Yeah.
red line that tells you which are the required fields. So that's also going to be an easy way to check for required values for not only the Salesforce objects, but also the custom objects that you have been creating.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so now we'll create the lead and we can call this as test lead, Julian. And I'm just gonna say lead and then provide these field values, right? So our field values are, what are our field values? So we need the last name, right? So we need the last name and the company name, right? So the last name is, so I've made this method a little generic, Julian, because then I can pass in whatever the values I need, right? So I can pass in whatever the values I need here, and then I return the test lead here, right? So this is just an example. Okay, now I can easily, like, because it is a static method, right? I can say data factory dot create lead, and I can pass in whatever I need to, without having to worry about it. And as you can see, I'm not inserting any data in the data factory because sometimes you want to insert insert this data, sometimes you don't want to insert them, right? So that's the reason why I'm like, okay, let's just return the instance of the object and we will take care of it later, right? So data factory, okay. So now any application, Julian, will require user creation and also assignment of the permission set, right? Now in the interest of time, I'm not gonna code that. I'm just gonna copy paste it from the cheat sheet that I've created. I'm just gonna copy paste. I'm gonna explain you what I'm doing here in the interest of the time, because I want to code a lot more of test cases than creating the data factory. So I have a method here. So similar to the lead, right? I have a method to create a test user. So in Salesforce, before you create the user, you need to make sure he has a profile. So that's what this method is doing. Basically, you need a profile and an alias. So this is instantiating the user object and it is assigning all the required fields. Now user object is really, little different than other objects because it has a lot more required fields. You need the username and the username needs to be unique, etc. Right? So basically I pass an alias which needs to be unique and I construct this, and pretty much I can use this for any project, honestly, because it's the same thing we do on any project. And then I have one more method to assign the permission set. So Julian, as a best practice, you should always start with minimum permission set or minimum profile, and then you assign permission set. So for example, for the e-cars application, right? So if you look at let's go and look at our profiles for a sec. And this is something that changed in recent, like couple of releases back, so I want to make sure our developers know about this. So when you go to profiles, right, there is a specific profile that we provide called minimum access Salesforce profile. So by default, you should start with that and then give it, if you have a custom profile, obviously you can start with that. But let's say you are building an application, you start with minimum access profile and then you provide permissions on top of it, so that's how it is. So here I wanted to basically create this, a class or a utility where I can pass the permission name and give the user ID, and then I query for that permission set. So Julian, this is a simple SOQL, just like SQL, where we query the permission set with the name of the permission set, and we insert that permission set assignment, which is like a junction object between the permission set, which is this object, and the user object. So you basically provide the IDs for permission set and the assignee, and you insert it, right? So pretty happy with data factory at this point, Julian. So why don't we just push it to our org? Again, I wish I could do it all offline, but that is not how Salesforce works, right? So everything is there on the org. So we just push this. So how about we do a for source push? So for source push, I'll push this change now to the org. So, okay, invalid type create lead. Why is it complaining invalid type? Oh, okay, this has to be lead. Okay, there you go. That's the fun stuff of live coding, is you actually make some mistakes, which is awesome, because we can show how to fix that. Yeah, it has to be lead object. So Okay, so field does not exist. Company name. Okay, it's called company actually. Okay, perfect. So it's called company. Let's push. Let's give one more push. So if it is an invalid again names, it will not. So Julian. So as you can see, the data factory got deployed, and this is the meta file for that, which specifies the version and the status, which automatically gets created and pushed. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now we have the data factory, right, Julian? The next thing that we want to do is actually look at that class that we are working towards. So PDF creates service, right? So Julian, in the test context, right, we actually have to, like, we don't call the actual web service, right? And that is same with even if you are working with anything, right? Like even JavaScript, we saw that we don't actually call the server. Instead, we mock the server, right? We mock that specific endpoint. We mock the implementation of that endpoint and the responses, right? So that's why we won't be calling to the Heroku service in the test context, and we need to actually mock up this this specific HTTP callout. So HTTP callout again means it's an outbound call to another system. That's what it means in Salesforce world. So we need to mock that HTTP callout, and that's where documentation will come really handy. And I want to go to the documentation and show you a couple of things. So Apex Developer Guide is your friend for writing any Apex, and also Apex Recipes application, which is our sample application. So if you go to Trailhead Apps, find Apex Recipes application. So Apex Recipes. So
sharing all of those resources.
Yeah, thank you.
Chat.
Yeah, so find the Apex Recipes application. This has a dedicated folder for test, and see how Kevin has sort of structured the test cases and written test cases. It's going to help you. For now, we're going to take also the reference of our Apex Developer Guide. So here you can search for mock. Let's search for mock HTTP callout. So let's search for mock HTTP. So here is an example of how to sort of HTTP callout mock. So we're going to implement this, Julian, HTTP mock call. And essentially what you do, Julian, is you create a class which implements this interface. So HTTP callout is the interface, and they provide you a method called respond. So where you can actually create a fake response. So I'm going to just create one and see how we can sort of use it. So let's do that. So let's come back to our here, right? Let me clear all this. So there's already one that's created, but I'm going to ignore that and create my own. Let's call it as PDF create service mock. That's what I'm going to call it. So basically I go to the classes folder, say create Apex class, and say PDF create service mock. Let's call it as mock. Okay, so let's put it in the class folder. And again, this one, right, is a test class. So we say add is test. We don't need, we'll see whether we need the constructor, but we need to implement that interface. Again, we don't need this with sharing. We need to implement that interface, Julian. Yeah. So let's come back and see what interface it was. So implements HTTP callout mock. So we come back here. We implement the HTTP callout mock. Okay. And Julian, this has a method, right? So what method it has? It's an interface, right? Remember, it's an interface. So they will give you the method. So the method is respond actually, right? The method is respond. So we need to make sure that we have that method captured. So I'm gonna copy this and see what we can do here. We can change few things here and there based on our requirements, but again, copying the code, make sure you understand. If you understand and copy, it's fine. I copy a lot from Stack Exchange for sure, Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow, but make sure that you understand every part of the code before you actually copy. That's so critical. So we say, and again, we don't need global here. I don't know why the docs have the examples with global, but we generally don't need global. As I said, public is enough if we are using this in another environment, right? If you want to write a service which can be used in every environment, then global will make sense. Now we don't need these asserts. I'm gonna take off this. Okay, so Julian, so we know that our application code has two parts. One is if the status code is 200, then it returns true. If the status code is not 200, then we throw an error saying there was some error in the response. So we know that, okay, so we don't need to worry about setting up the body for it. So this is the fake response, by the way, Julian. So this is the fake response that I'm creating with the response object here, HTTP response object. Now, the status code has to be something that could be changed, right? It could be 200. It's not constant. And my faker should be able to handle that. So one way I can do that is by creating a property here called, let's create a property with integer and call it as status code, right? And then I can pass in that property in my constructor, and this is very common pattern in Java or Apex, right, where you can use the constructor to pass in some value when you construct this class. So all that I need to make sure is I assign this value, and now what I can do is this guy can be here. So that way, when I construct this class, Julian, when I mock my actual service with this service class, when I say new PDF service, I can pass in the status code, whether it is 200, I can pass in 200 for one of the test cases. I'll pass probably 500 for the rest of them. Okay. All right, so we have this. So we have got the fake responses. So I think I'm happy with this class, Julian. This is our mock class, and we save it and we push it. So let's just push it. Source push. Okay, this should push fine. Okay. All right, so yeah, so based on the status code, it's returning the response. Okay. Yeah, so it went fine. So I've created the data factory, right, where I'm going to create some lead records and some test users assigned permission set. I've created the PDF create service mock. Now comes actually testing this actual class, right? So to test the actual class, right, I'm going to create one more class, Julian, call it as PDF create service test. So let's quickly create that. So we're gonna say PDF create, and usually I recommend that you start with test word. So let's just start with that. I think I should call test PDF create service. Test is for a test class, and service is for or PDF create service is the name of the class. So we say enter. Okay, so now this is created. Now, Julian, we need to make sure that this is private because I don't want this class to be called anywhere, so I'm gonna make it private. And also because it is a test class, I'm gonna say at ease test. Where is it? At ease test, right? I don't need the constructor, Julian, so I'm gonna get rid of it. Okay, so Julian, so here is where interestingly we have we talked about AAA pattern, right? So the first thing was arrange, right? So we in Salesforce, right, there is something called as test setup, which basically is a method, right, where you can set up all your test data. So it's like arranging all your test data, right? So the add test setup here, I'm gonna make some data. So let's call it as, instead of saying make data, maybe make data is also fine, or set up test data, anything you can call it as. You can call anything here, right? So let's see. So okay, so I'm gonna say make, or let's say create test data. Feel free to name anything, actually it doesn't matter, whatever works for you, right? So here first I want to create an admin user, Julian. I want to create an admin user so that I can insert the lead as an admin user. I can assign a permission to my user, right? So I want to first do that, and then I want to make sure I create a lead. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is create an admin user. And why do we need to do that, Julian? Is because, again, as I said, all the tests in Salesforce, make sure that you are writing as that user context that's going to execute your actual cases, test cases, right? So for example, if somebody is not an admin and trying to execute your tests, right, they should they should not, they might or might not have the permission. So just use the the actual user context, and that's why I created this test data factory. So I'm gonna say data factory dot okay, so we have these methods. So we want to create a test user, right? And our profile name here is system administrator. Okay, so this is our thing, system administrator, right? And we need an alias for this, and the alias could be anything, right? For now I'm gonna say standard. I'm just gonna, it should be within 8 characters, and it should be unique. This is the alias. Now this is where I was saying, Julian, so you need to do system.run as, because then you want the user to run as that user, right? So we're gonna say system.run as this user, admin user, right? So data factory we went, and this is the test user that got generated, right? It is an admin profile, so you know that it's an admin profile by providing the profile name and an alias. So now I'm going to insert that lead, right? And again, we created the lead, right? We created the test lead. So I'm going to just use the data factory to create the lead. So I'm going to say data factory dot create. So once you have the data factory, it becomes very easy essentially. So I'm going to say test lead as the last name, and a company name could be anything like Salesforce, right?
Okay.
And then we insert the lead. That's important. So we have created we have the lead, right? So that we get the lead ID here, Julian. And then we are running all of these as an admin user, but the actual user using the system or using this PDF create service might not be an admin, right? So we want to make sure we have one more user. Let's call it as eCar app user. How about eCar app user, right? So next we're going to say eCar app user, and again use the data factory because that's awesome. So data factory dot create test user, right? And Julian, the profile name here this time, I was talking about minimum profile, right? So let's by default assign him a minimum access profile to begin with, right? So that's what I assume that an administrator will give the privileges for. Okay. All right. So minimum access user profile, right? And then I'm gonna just give a alias as something. Okay, so this is the eCar user. Now there's one more thing, right? So minimum access profile will not be sufficient. We know that there are some objects in that application and it requires a permission set, right? And that's why I created that data factory to assign the permission set. So all I need to do here, Julian, is data factory dot. Now one more thing, right? So this user has to be inserted, right? If it doesn't, if you don't insert the user, we don't get the ID. So we insert the user and then say data factory dot assign permission set. So we need the name of the permission, and I think we have the permission set in our app. It's called eCar or eCars. Let's see. Let's just make sure, otherwise the code will not work. So remember, we package up the permission set, Julian.
Yes.
So it's called eCars. Okay, all small. Okay, that makes sense. So it's called eCar, right? So it's called eCars, eCars, and then this guy's ID. Okay, so we have the arrange section sort of done. Like this is the data, right? So before any test method sort of executes, Julian, it will automatically now create the admin user, it'll insert the lead, it'll create the app user, it'll assign the permission set, right? So now Julian, we need to make sure to test it, right? So again, that will be again a static. Now any test method that you want to execute, you have to again say is test, both at the class level and at the method level, right? So again, static void, and let's say, okay, invoke PDF create service success. How about this? So this is for the positive case, that is everything works fine, right? So success, right? Now if you look at this code, right, so we need to pass in the service input for this, right, which basically is again a class, and it has exterior color, interior color, range, price, and the lead ID, right? So we need to construct something around those lines, Julian, right? And we need to make sure to run this application as eCar app user only, right? So why don't I first query the user, right? So, and one more thing, Julian, is we actually query in this test context, like any data that you insert here will only be available here if you query them back. That's the generally how it's how the system is designed. So now I'm gonna say, okay, so I'm gonna say ID from user, right? User where we're gonna say where profile dot name. So we know that profile is unique, or you can basically use any of the unique things that you can identify this user. I know that there is no user with this at this point, right, in the test context. So I'm gonna use that, and limit 1 if you want, you can put, so that it no more returns a list, it's one record, right? So now I have the eCars user, right? I have the eCars user. Let me also query the lead, because I need the lead ID, right? So I'm gonna say select ID from lead, right? Limit 1. Okay, so I have the lead, I have the eCars, right? Now I'm gonna make sure to run all of these as the eCar app user, right? So I'm gonna say eCar app user. So I'm gonna make sure again use the system dot run as, right? System dot run as. Okay, so system dot run as. Okay, so everything will run as an eCars user, Julian.
Yep.
And now here is where things go a little interesting. That is, so what we need to do here, Julian, is we need to mock it up. Like we need to indicate that instead of actually going to the real class, right? Go to this mock service that we have created, like the mock service here. So you saw we created a mock here, right? So we have to tell that. So before that, we have to set the context, and I'll tell you what why we need to create the context. Now, before that, I also need to make sure that I set up the data that is required to be input to this method, right? So I'm gonna cheat a bit here, Julian. I have the data. I don't want to spend time creating the data. So I have I have the class sort of already created that I want to use as an input here. So let's just use this, right? So this is my input that's going to be passed on to that specific method, right? Now I want to start the test execution here, Julian. So what we need, Julian, here is so what we do in Salesforce, and this is very important, is we have these two methods called start test and stop test. So this basically what it does is when you write multiple tests, right? You saw before and after tests in the jest, right, where we had this after test setup do things, right? So this is very similar to that, where you say, okay, I want to start the test execution, I want to stop. And if you don't write this, what happens is, let's say I have another method, whatever the limits are used by this specific method, it's going to be carried over. So it's going to be cumulative, and we don't want to do that. We want to refresh the limits. We want to refresh the whole context for every test execution, right? It's similar to like, you want to remove the DOM and attach the DOM in the jest, right? We were doing that. So it is very, very similar to that. So, any test method that you write, make sure you have test.start test and test.stop test. Now we need to make sure that we have test dot. So this is what I was talking about, right? The mock. So test.mock, right? Where you say, okay, what is your interface type? And this is, the interface type for this will be HTTP callout mock, right? So this is the class, right? This is the interface type that we have the mock class for, and then we need to say, okay, provide the mock here, right? Yeah, so this is our mock class. So I'm gonna say new class. So this is the new class, right? Now we need to pass. So we constructed this. So this requires the status code. So we're gonna say 200, right? So we set the mock now, Julian. So instead of actually going to the class, like when we invoke the method, right? When we invoke the method, instead of going to the actual API, it's gonna say, okay, I want to go to this mock class that we have created, and it is automatically going to return a fake response with the status code 200, right? So let's just wind it up. So okay, so we have this, right? So we have 9 more minutes. So let's see if we can do. Okay, so now we have the test.set mock. Now we need to just call the service, right? So we are testing this service. So we're gonna say PDF create service dot invoke PDF, right? And then we provide the input values to this, and then we take the output. The output is Boolean, and let's call it as response, right? So this method actually returns Boolean value, so that's why I captured that here. And because it is a static class, I don't have to instantiate. I just say class dot method and provide the input, that is this input, right? So if everything is fine, this response should say that. So similar to asserts, like similar to expectations or expect in our jest test, right? We need to make sure that we can assert using system.assert equals. So this is the expected value is true, right? The actual value is what you get in the response, and then this is an optional message. So in case this fails, right, we can display this message, right? So I usually like to do like something like this. So expected true but got, oh, sorry, just jump on me. Expected yeah, expected true but got this response, right? So in case, let's say I'm getting some other value here, at least I'll have a message which says, okay, what was the expected, what did I get? So always use this assert equals, and it provides that third parameter where it makes it really easy. So I think I've got the test done, Julian. How about we push and show you how to execute these tests?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So just say force source push, right? So I'm gonna push that. Let's see if we did not make any. Oh, there you go. Okay, first attempt. Usually it's hard, on the first attempt to get everything right, but because I have some experience, a lot of experience working it. But don't get disappointed if you get an error. Just try to read through the error. And the other thing, Julian, is I have the prettier with me. So how about prettify this a bit, which looks really nice.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Now look at that. Yeah. So we prettified, right? It's looking really good. So execution is very simple. If you have got the plugins, right, you will see this nice little thing called run test, just like how we saw for the jest. It's the same experience. So what you do is you say run test. It's going to execute. It's going to take some time, Julian. But let's see what happens here.
Crossing fingers.
Yeah, cross fingers. It's running that test execution. Oh, there you go. Success. Okay. So it passed,
Nice.
right? It passed. Now, important thing is also to know the coverage, right? So I can go to the actual class, and Julian, do you see this little 3 dashes here on my bottom?
I will need to zoom it up a little bit.
Or let me zoom a bit. This one.
Yes.
So this is what highlights the coverage. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is click on that and look at this. So it's gonna say, okay, all the green lines are covered, all the red lines are not covered. Now I don't know for how this is getting covered. Maybe because of some other test that is there in the place, right? But this is gonna tell you if if lines are not getting covered or anything like that. It's gonna let you know about it. But because I think this, I was expecting this to be not covered, honestly, but looks like,
I think we have another test.
yeah,
We have another test, right?
yeah, we have another test probably, and that actually covers. Um, yeah, so that's one way of it, right? You can also use the dev console. Like for example, I won't show that option as well. A lot of people use the dev console, which is also a nice utility actually given by Salesforce on the server. Right, so you can use basically you can say test, right, new run, and I can find my test. Like this was the test that I wrote. I can use this and then say run this, right? It's gonna go queue it up and it's gonna run. Right now I can go to all my tests, right? It ran, and then I can also go to that little PDF service. So here also it's showing everything is covered. Same thing. So you can look at the same thing here. And so so I want to, okay, so there is one more thing. Right now, if you wanted to write a negative test, it's pretty much same thing actually, Julian. It's pretty much same thing, except that this time you copy. Let me quickly show an example. And I think we have like another 4 or 5 minutes here. But yeah, so basically you go copy that and say failure, right? Everything is gonna be same, except that this response, you're gonna change the value to say 500, right? And this assertions is gonna change, right? So let me quickly show if there is one here already in the repo. Yeah, so you see Rene or somebody has already coded, right? So you basically set the response to 503 or 500, and then you put everything into the catch, and then make sure that you assert the exception message to make sure that the message is coming exactly how you have set here, right? So it's pretty similar. So once you write one test, right, and everything is like copy paste, change things here and there, configure variables, right? Okay, so with that, let's come back to our slides, Julian, and wrap this up. We are almost close to the time. So Julian, we covered this, right? So just to some differences actually, right, between our Apex and JavaScript. The fundamental principles are same, except that Apex has its own system methods, its own way of writing it, right? But the principles are same. And if you compare, right, I have this compare slide where I was just comparing, like, okay, what are the language constructs? So the language constructs are different, but exactly you are doing same thing. Like, you're following that AA pattern where you're arranging your application to a desired state, and then you're acting upon it, and then finally you're asserting the behavior. So you can see like the describe is a test class, right? After each, before each is almost like add test setup, right? Your it in that in the jest test is very, very similar to how we do at east in the test method, right? Expect, so all the matches there in the jest is very similar to system.assert functions, right? So everything is inline, it's same. The language constructs, obviously JavaScript is more, you'll have to know about functions and classes. And if you're coming from JavaScript world to Apex, again, you have to be, it's pretty similar to object-oriented programming like Apex, right? Very similar to Java. So you need to know methods, you need to know about classes, and how to invoke these methods. Anyway, so with that, Julian, I have some helpful references for our audience here. And please do actually refer them. I'm going to share the slides on our on our Trailblazer community here. So follow this community. We will make sure to post our slides here, and also look at our sample app gallery, because especially the Apex recipes for this, because it has a lot more examples of how to write a proper Apex unit test. So with that, Julian, thank you, and thank you, Julian, for joining us and bringing all the questions from a new developer perspective.
And stay tuned because we are going to have like way more content. We're going to learn how to package and
Yeah.
node modules, how to work with CI/CD on Heroku as well. So there will be more sessions coming soon.
All right. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Bye bye.